Today, we're going to be creating this particular loop. If you've already watched my organic shapes using UV spheres video, you'll get an idea in this video on how you can actually apply what you learned in that video. Along with that, if you've checked out my neon sphere reflection video, you'll get an idea of how to spice it up. So this is essentially a combination of those two videos. If you haven't watched them, be sure to watch them right after we finish this particular video. In our default scene, we're going to go ahead and press X and delete the default cube. Then we'll press Shift A and search for a mesh UV sphere. Now we're going to go down to the drop down over here, expand it and change the segments down to something like 16. Of course, you could do it with different numbers, but I'm going to use 16 for today. Then I'm going to collapse the menu again and press 7 to go to the top view. And then just like the previous video, press tab to go into edit mode or use this drop down over here and just select this central vertex. Then press O to switch on proportional editing or toggle this particular button up here, and then press R and just rotate it and use the scroll wheel to make sure that even the last points at the absolute edge are also rotating a little bit. So I think something like this is enough. And then I'm just going to rotate it by 90 degrees and then press enter. Then I'll press Ctrl 7 to go to the bottom view, select this particular button, then R, 90, enter. Now you have this nice twist being created, and you can press 7 again and change it to edge select mode by pressing this button or using the number 2. Then we'll press Shift Alt and select one edge to select the entire edge loop. And we'll do that for every alternate edge loop. In this case, we're going to have to do it 8 times. Once you've selected all of them, we'll go ahead and switch off proportional editing using that button or tapping O, and then we're going to scale them in by some amount. Maybe we'll go with 0.8. After that, we'll go ahead and select all of the edges that are currently on top. And once you've done that, we're going to press Ctrl B to bevel them, but we're going to bevel them ever so slightly. So we're going to use a bevel width of maybe 0.004. And that thin bevel is all we require. Once you have that set, you can press tab to go back into object mode, go to the modifiers tab over here, add in a new subdivision surface modifier, and then go ahead and change the levels to 4 on both the view and the render. After that, you can go up here and click object, shade smooth. Then we can go ahead and give it its own materials. So we'll go down to the materials properties over here, add in a new material and call this base, and then press this plus button to add in a new material slot, press tab to enter edit mode, and then press new, change the material name to glow, and then hit assign. Once you've done that, press tab to go back into object mode, and that's all there is for the modeling. However, we'll just press 1 to go into the front view and then press RX90 to rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees. Then grab it on the Z, press Ctrl so that it snaps to grid and just move it up by 1 unit. After that, you can press Shift A to add in another cube. Of course, we didn't have to delete the default cube, but customs. So GZ to grab it up and move it up by 1 unit. And then you can press tab to enter edit mode, go to face select, just select this outer face and press X faces. And that way you get a nice box within which all the reflections will occur. Similarly, you can just go to the edge select mode, Shift Alt select this entire ring, and then press E and bring it out by 2 units and do that same thing again, E, Y, 2 units. Apart from that, we can also press A to select everything and just scale it on the X by a little bit, and then press tab to go into object mode, Ctrl A, apply scale. That's all there is for the modeling, and now we can start off with the texturing. To do that, we'll go ahead and set all of our defaults. We'll go to the render properties, switch on ambient occlusion, bloom, screen space reflections, and then go to our output properties, change the frame rate to 30 frames per second. End frame is going to be 150 so that it's a 5-second long animation. Output can be wherever you want it to be. File format is going to be FFmpeg video, and the encoding has to be changed to MPEG-4 with an output quality of perceptually lossless. Once you're happy with that, select the camera, press Alt-G and Alt-R to clear location and rotation, RX90, GY to grab it back, and then GZ to bring it up, and then press 0 to go into your camera view. Then again, you can grab it on the Y and just bring it in or out till the sphere is covering a significant portion of the screen. Now that you have that, you can go ahead and switch the viewport to rendered. You can select the light from the outliner and then press delete to remove it. And finally, I want a lot more ambient occlusion. So I'm going to expand the ambient occlusion and increase the factor to something like 10 and the distance as well to 1. So now that I have the ambient occlusion added in, I can select the camera by selecting the outline in the viewport or selecting it from the outline over here. Go to the camera properties, go to viewport display and increase passport out all the way to 1 so that nothing outside the camera view can be seen. Once you're happy with that, we can start off with the actual materials. So let's bring our cursor to the junction of these two windows, click and drag to add in a new window and change it from the 3D viewport to the shader editor. Then we'll select our UV sphere, and you see we have glow already selected, so we'll go ahead and work with that. First, we'll delete the principled BSDF by tapping X, and then we'll press Shift A and search for an emission node. Then you can simply plug the emission node into the surface and you see the glow appear. Now we're going to increase the strength to something like 5, and then we want this to actually be a gradient of 2 different colors. So we'll press Shift A and search for a gradient node, and to actually control the colors, we'll search for a color ramp, and we'll plug the color from the gradient texture into the factor of the color ramp, and then connect the color ramp to the emission node. Now you see the gradient is starting from somewhere outside the sphere. So we'll select the gradient texture, press Ctrl T with the node wrangler switched on. Otherwise, add in a texture coordinate and mapping nodes and switch it from generated to object. After that, change the black color to whatever you please. So I'll maybe go with a nice greenish color, and the white color, I'll go with this sort of a blue color. After that, I'm going to change it from linear to ease as well. And I'll just change the location a little bit on the X to bring it a bit more centralized. Now that you have that done, we can go to the world properties and change the color all the way to black so that everything is lit only from the reflections. Now we can go down to the material properties over here and change from glow to base so that we can give the base some material. What we'll do is we'll just decrease the roughness, but we'll keep the metallic at 0 itself. You could increase the metallic if you want, but I think I'm just going to go with a metallic value of 0 and a roughness value of 0 as well. So that just gives it these slight reflections on the insides as well. Along with that, I'll change the base color to lift it up and make it as white as possible. And that's it. The next thing is the actual materials for the outer cube. So we'll select it and press new to add in a new material. And we're just going to play around with the roughness as usual, as well as increasing the metallic to something like 0.8. Then we'll press Shift A and search for a magic node. So generally I use a noise texture and a Voronoi texture, but I've done that too many times on this channel. So I'm going to use a magic texture this time. We're going to go ahead and plug that into the roughness. And this is what we get. As usual, we can press Shift A and search for a color ramp to get some more control over the actual colors. And I don't want any portion to be completely reflective, so I'm going to change the black value to something like 0.1. And of course, the white value can also be decreased all the way down to something like 0.7, then it's mostly reflective. Once you're happy with that, I also want to play around with the actual distortion and scale. So I'm actually going to reduce the distortion to 0.7, and I'm going to reduce the scale to 4. After that, to completely disrupt this uniformity and bring in a lot more randomness, I'm just going to press Shift A and search for a noise texture, and I'm going to plug the color into the vector of the magic texture, and that immediately makes this fairly random. Now I can play around with the scale, but more than that, I want to play around with the actual color ramp to allow more of it to be reflective so that we can actually see the individual reflections occur. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to continue playing with the scale on the magic texture as well. I'll make that a scale of 2.5. Maybe the noise texture can go down to 3. And maybe I'll increase the detail to 15 and the roughness to 0.7, just to give it this nice grunge texture. Scale up the magic texture to 4. And I'm also going to bring in the color ramp from somewhere back here all the way front so that there's more reflections occurring. And this is a nice grunge texture that I'm liking. So this is what's going to be the actual sides. Now we can start off the actual animation. So let's just select our sphere, go back to frame 0, and then press I, rotation, and then go to frame 150, which is our last frame, and just rotate it on the y-axis by 360 degrees so that it does one full rotation, and then press I, rotation, and then down here press T, linear, so that it changes from Bezier to linear and it doesn't slow down, speed up, and it just continues rotating at a uniform speed. And with that, we're actually done with this particular tutorial. So if you've enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, be sure to check out all of the previous videos on my channel. I'm sure you'll find various things that you'll actually enjoy, and watching them would help give you ideas as well as help me continue making content for all of you. Until the next video comes out, which is going to be tomorrow because I release videos every single day, keep creating and stay creative.